For the majority of new students, going to university means leaving home and living independently for the first time. But imagine arriving to find your accommodation falling apart, riddled with problems, paying to live in student slums in a property the university recommended that you live in.
Then I read the words "pest control" written outside my room. Cockroaches were everywhere.
I don't think they're taking us seriously. I think they're looking at us and laughing at us. They know what they're doing, treating us like we're children.
From pest control and cockroaches to mould and leaks, welcome to the halls of horror. I'm Daniel Hewitt, and this is what you need to know. Sam Leader, our reporter, is here with me to discuss this really important story. Sam, thank you for joining us. I've always felt, as someone who's covered the housing crisis for the last few years, that housing is an underreported issue, and there's so many different layers to the housing crisis. I'm so glad you're looking into this, because student accommodation is one of those things that it crops up every now and again, but you've been really digging into what's going on here.
Yeah, like basically from TikTok. So just scrolling through TikTok and then seeing this shocking video of a halls of residence ceiling just completely collapsing above a bed, and then went to visit and found out that it was actually the second time that had happened in that block. And kind of standing there thinking, like going in and smelling, like when you went into the houses and things, I remember you describing like the smells and things, and going in and it just being damp, it smelled like soil, and thinking these can't be the only students in the country who are having issues with their halls. And it turns out that it wasn't, actually.
So you put a call out, didn't you?
Yeah.
And I assume it was a pretty big response.
Yeah. So to kind of, I guess, get people to come to us rather than going, because the number of students out there is ridiculous, rather than going to each student, we got them to come to us. So we put a video out on TikTok, basically saying email or comment if you've got any issues. And the response was insane. I mean, I suppose it is to be expected, because dodgy student housing has been around for years. We've all been students and witnessed some sort of horror shows. But the stuff that we got sent in was crazy. And we had hundreds of students writing in to say, this is what I've experienced over the course of my time at university.
I suppose one of the big differences is, I mean, there'll be maybe people watching this who went to university many years ago, and I think maybe part of the experience was living in a kind of grotty student flat or a grotty student house. The difference now is that students are paying tens of thousands of pounds to go to university. They are plunging themselves, I certainly did, into debt to go to university, and they are expecting, at the very minimum, not to live in a hellhole that potentially be making them sick.
Yeah, and they're not only paying for university, they're obviously paying extortionate rents as well.
Exactly,
and a lot of them were saying, well, actually it's affecting my mental health, or it's affecting my grades. So it's actually the housing that they're in is affecting their university life as well. And these are first-time renters who, some of them have no idea how to deal with situations like these. So it kind of just spiraled from there.
Yeah, I suppose if you turn up and you don't know anything about what it's like to rent, you just assume it's all going to be okay, that the university have sorted it for you. And why would you know at 18 or 19 your rental rights?
Exactly.
You've been speaking to Ahmed, is that right? Tell me about him.
Yeah, Ahmed, I really felt for him, because he was the first kind of a student that we really got in contact with. And he is an international student from Pakistan. So he said that he was excited to be, it was his first time abroad, he was excited to be moving abroad, going to university to be able to study his chosen degree. But when he got there, he was told that he couldn't go into his allotted room because there was, quote, maintenance. When he went to check, it was actually pest control. And what unfolded was just a complete plague of vermin, not just in his room, but across the whole flat. So in his kitchen, I think we can hear from Ahmed about what he experienced in those first few months.
We went to the reception and they told me that my allotted room that I have paid for, isn't available because it's undergoing maintenance. Then I read the words "pest control" written outside my room. Cockroaches were everywhere. Groceries, dining table, the cooking table.
So he spent 7 months being moved around accommodations. So yeah, a big part of university is meeting people. Like, I remember that being one of the most important things I was excited for, was the social life. Yeah. And he was moved. Yeah. But he was moved from flat to flat. So he never had kind of his own flat right until the end of term. And there wasn't a permanent solution for 7 months. So he lived amongst cockroaches. And when he went actually to to the building manager to get a response to this. This is what they said to him.
This woman told me to my face that she is surprised that I'm complaining because where I come from, my culture or my home essentially, it's pretty common, right? I live with cockroaches, so I should be chill. Why am I complaining for 6 months? And it threw me off a bit that she thinks this way. Washing cockroach feces from my dishes every single day was just so dehumanizing of an experience. And all of this continued for 7 months, made me just, made me think of how the university sees me and my flatmates.
Gosh.
You can see how like
I mentioned naked racism, right?
Yeah,
and that's a complete racism.
Yeah. And it was interesting because Ahmed sort of became almost a he told me he became almost a spokesperson for Norwich House where he was living, and basically majority of Norwich House was international students. He told me that, and he felt like they were being completely dismissed, completely ignored. Perhaps Sussex did make an effort to try and move them around, but there was no permanent solution for a very long time, and that was, as he said, disruptive to his social life. It was disruptive to his grades, and it really affected his first year on campus.
I remember sort of a couple of years into our investigation into social housing conditions, very similar conditions that you've been uncovering in student accommodation, and race was an obvious factor, ethnicity was an obvious factor. It felt to the tenants we were meeting that their race and ethnicity was a barrier to getting repairs done. And I remember meeting a guy called Leroy McNally, and him saying that when he'd ring the council, he'd say, "My name's Leroy," and they would think, okay, Leroy is a black person, I don't want to deal with this person. That was a quote from Leroy. And he started to say, what I started to realise was, if I said my name was Mr. McNally, they would treat me differently if I dropped my Christian name. I think there's one of the least talked about issues in housing, and it clearly, I thought, potentially was just in social housing and private renting. To hear it from a student who's coming over and paying all that kind of money, to be treated like that in his first few months at university, it must be heartbreaking.
Yeah, and you could hear it in the clips, he's quite a jokey, he takes things with a pinch of salt. He's quite a level-headed guy. But when we were kind of talking off camera and stuff, it was, genuine upset that he's in the UK that he was so excited to be in, and he was almost felt like race became part of why he wasn't getting decent housing.
So worth noting here, this is not, to be clear, this is not accommodation off campus that's being provided by a kind of landlord. This has been recommended by the university.
This is actually on campus. Yeah. Okay. So this is Sussex University campus accommodation that you get through the university. We did obviously go to them to get a response. They did say that they take reports of prejudice and racism extremely seriously. There is a formal investigation underway, and that after monitoring the vermin issues that they were facing closely, decided the full building treatment was necessary after the 7 months, and apologised for the disruption caused by the decision. But this was his first year in the UK, probably first and only year in the UK, and it was kind of ruined the majority of it.
It's just shocking because, again, having kind of looked into this issue with social housing, one of the arguments, and legitimate arguments, no, you can never justify being treated like the way Ahmed was, but one of the arguments is that the housing stock is very old. It's sort of 60, 70, 80 years old in some cases, in kind of old council tower blocks. Councils are short of money, they can't maintain the properties. A lot of overcrowding because families are too big to be in sort of 1 and 2 bed flats. In the private rental sector, we know that landlords are hardly ever regulated. They can get away with quite a lot with that before the councils come down on them. In this situation, that's the shocking thing here is this is the university. I mean, they surely don't have that many properties. They surely have enough money to make sure that their properties are up to a decent standard for their students.
Yeah, I think that the issue, and a lot of the students said it, and I remember it as well, is that you'd get towards the end of like the last term and they'd be sort of eking your problems out in a way. It's going to become the next tenant's problem. And I think that is often the case. Once that tenant moves out in May, June, they do the refurbishments for summer, but then it's someone else's problem. So whereas your housing kind of investigations could, in theory, go on for years, at the end of the day, in a lot of these cases, it's only going on for a short space of time.
So it's quite transient.
It just moves, and I think that's then where kind of a lot of these issues are missed, and it's just someone else's problem.
And you've also been speaking to Abigail, it says here, a student in Manchester. Tell me about that situation.
So Abigail, and we also spoke to a student, Neve, as well, are both students in Manchester. And this is different, and where we wanted to highlight that a lot of universities will recommend private accommodation, if you can't get accommodation either on campus or if you're going into second, third year and you want to stay in that kind of halls environment. So Abigail was staying at a halls, as I say, in Manchester. What I was shocked to find was when we first went in, like, you know, how when you're in halls, students they all know each other, so they're all chatting. And we're like walking up the stairs and she goes, oh, did you hear like flat 9 or whatever it was? Flat 9 have got cockroaches. And I was like, oh, cockroaches again. And went in, cockroaches like everywhere. God. And Abby's, this block was particularly problematic in many ways. Let's hear what Abby had to say first.
There's no support here.
And like, you have complained about the leak though, since you
have all the time. I think there's plenty of emails from being like, hey, like, sorry to bother you, but like, is anything going to happen about this? I don't think they're taking it seriously. I think they're looking at us and laughing at us, really. And I think they know what they're doing. I think it would be a different story if they were replying to emails considerably in a good time and actually putting in an effort, treating us like we're children.
So what Abby was saying there was basically she had a leak in her shower since November, which still hasn't been fixed when we went to see her in May after countless kind of emails to say, you know, the floor, if you watch the video of that, the floor is physically like bouncing from where there's so much water underneath it, which a contractor did tell her. But it wasn't just Abigail's room. We spoke to a student called Neve who had water dripping through the light fixtures. And we were told that took 6 months to repair. It was so bad that it was tripping the electrics in the flat. They also had no hot water for a month. So Neve was showering with hot water and a bucket for a month. We were told that there were no provisions put in place. So it just, the whole block, there were leaks all over the block. We were told that there was mold when they moved in to look at the showers. There was fridges that weren't cleaned. So it's not just uni-owned accommodation, but these are blocks that are recommended by the universities themselves. And when we went to these specific universities, these institutions that recommended it, they did take these recommendations off their website.
It'd be interesting to know, wouldn't it, on what basis they recommended and how long ago they maybe, you'd imagine they'd have gone around at some point and gone, yep, this is to standard, and then how many years have passed or months have passed before they've actually inspected. I mean, if you're recommending them as an institution, you probably should keep a close eye on them.
Their biggest thing, like as most of the students said, is like they're almost being treated like children. If you are 18, you know, you are, I suppose, in that kind of like stage where you are almost treated as a child, and what they're saying is, well, treat us like an adult. You know, we're sending you emails to say, come and fix this.
And you're paying.
And paying, you know, these guys were paying over £800 a month for some of these rooms, and just the list of things that weren't getting fixed was just going up and up and up.
And have you spoken to anyone in the housing sector that kind of understands this as to what is going on here? Yeah,
so actually, it's worth mentioning, Save the Student, who are sort of an advice service for students, did a survey earlier this year that found 69% of students had at least one issue with their student accommodation. So obviously went to them, we spoke to one of their guys called Tom Allenham, who basically said there's more 18-year-olds in higher education than there's ever been before. And so it's a supply-demand thing. And what that means is there's not enough accommodation for students because there's so much demand for it. And therefore, landlords or whoever's managing the properties, they're allowing their kind of standards to slip, or they're relying on kind of private providers, which can be the Wild West, as we've kind of worked out during the course of this kind of investigation.
It seems that, to me then, Sam, that the housing crisis that we've become more and more aware over the last few years, which is a kind of not enough houses, not enough properties for the population that needs them, it's being mirrored almost exactly in the student population. I think it's the same problem being replicated. It's a reminder, isn't it? It doesn't matter. It feels like when you're at university that you're in a bubble and you're sort of in your own little world, but actually the world arrives at your door, and this is what's happening in this world as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't seem. We spoke to Universities UK as well, who said universities need to sort of abide by certain codes that they've signed up to. So it's just kind of, as you say, maintaining these blocks to a standard so that when the next student moves in, it's up to scratch for them as well.
Okay, Sam, honestly, it's so good that you're looking into this, and I know the people will still keep contacting you. If you've got an issue, please do get in touch with Sam and the team. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Remember, you can listen to every episode of What You Need to Know wherever you get your podcasts, or you can watch them on ITVX and on YouTube. Whilst you're there, do not forget to subscribe to the podcast, that you never miss an episode. You'll never miss one. Just subscribe. But for now, thank you very much for listening, for watching. From Sam and I, thank you very much.